Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. As a 10-year-old girl, I became ill with strep throat and pneumonia, as well as a high temperature. I'd been sick for a few weeks with a sore throat, cold-like symptoms, coughing, and increased trouble breathing. I'd always had respiratory problems and was later diagnosed with asthma. I ultimately went unconscious and was transported to the hospital. During my medical evaluation, I was stripped out of my clothing and wrapped in cold, wet sheets in an attempt to reduce my fever. They gave me a penicillin injection after determining what was wrong with me. It created an allergic reaction in me, resulting in anaphylactic shock, which killed me. I felt myself floating up to the upper right rear corner of the hospital room after exiting my body. When I peered down, I saw what I thought was me, a long, skinny figure draped in white sheets, but it wasn't. While I, the actual me, was dispassionately watching the hospital staff frantically attending to it with an intense and escalating flurry of activity, I felt a complete and absolute disidentification with the corpse. The concern and attention they paid to this body was intriguing, but no one realized I was standing outside of it, watching. I could see my heartbroken mother down the hall through the wall. On some level, I could sense and feel her anguish, and I wanted her to know that I was fine, that she didn't need to worry or be unhappy. Her angst was no doubt heightened by the fact that the doctor had previously sharply and fiercely admonished her. Why hadn't she taken me in for medical attention sooner? We were staying at my great-aunt's cottage. It was summertime. My illness deteriorated to the point where my fever remained high and consistent for 2 days, at least 104 degrees, and my body shivered uncontrollably. Despite the fact that I was hot to the touch, I kept saying how cold and frigid I was. So my mom took my great-aunt's advice and wrapped me in blankets and a woolen hat. My aunt also applied Vicks VapoRub to me and placed a sock around my neck. All of this naturally increased my fever, which caused me to become unresponsive. My mother was chastised by the doctor for bringing me into the hospital wearing blankets and a woolen hat with a sock around my neck. He said that she was roasting me to death and firmly ordered her to wait elsewhere. This was something my mother told me years later. As I continued to look about the room disinterestedly, a light began to flood the space, encompassing everything in sight, making its way to me, wrapping itself around me. I couldn't see anything else save this brightness. The physical scene below has faded and vanished. The light became increasingly bright. It was stunning, wonderful. Brilliant white silvery light swirled and slid over me, creating and blending. It embraced and welcomed me into itself. It was exquisitely peaceful and flowing. It seemed as though I had entered a luminous corridor. The light drew and drew me into itself, enveloping me. I had no objections because it seemed so pleasant and natural. I became one with the light. I moved through this bright tube. Nothing on earth can compare to the intensity of the brightness. It was like looking up and seeing shafts of sunlight shining onto you through the leaves of trees, only thousands of millions of times brighter. There was a sweet softness in this throbbing brilliance. I felt deep, beautiful affection, a gathering and remembrance of being this love, this pure and flawless essence. They were all perfect and complete. I felt endless and unlimited, and I was content. Complete tranquility. There were no thoughts, only beautiful, calm silence and unfathomable contentment. There was a subtle hum in the background at one point, as well as the pleasant sound of whooshing air or wind all around. However, it was neither distracting nor annoying. It was stunning. A lovely being appeared in front of me, exuding pure divine love. This thing was formless and pulsing softly and ethereally, but it had a hint of form, like a blended, ever so faint outline that was ever more radiantly beautiful, though, paradoxically, of the same brilliance as all else around it. Another form existed on either side of this wonderful person, even though their edges and their wholeness intermingled with the core being. These two other entities felt as powerful, but slightly smaller and a half step back. They also appeared to be more conscientious. I almost didn't say they, because all three entities felt the same. This profound love was shared by all of us. Our conversation was telepathic, without words. This type of communication was all-knowing, like windows into the soul's heart, through which communication may spread both forth and inside. We could instantly read each other's minds. There was no room for even the slightest misunderstanding. Each expression was perfectly captured in its entirety. Everything was explained so simply, succinctly, and eloquently by the three entities and I. The thought forms flowed back and forth at the same time. We all heard each other. I had the impression that the being was God, the creator, and that the thought forms of the other entities were communicated to me via the single core consciousness. Everything was perfect. I felt at home in the center of the fountain of all love, basking, enfolded, and caressed. God's heart is my home. Even though there was no sense of time or order, I recall a tiny uneasiness, a hesitation to acquiesce to the next request. This was to consider looking back at my life, reviewing it, and then deciding whether to stay in this loving embrace of heavenly perfection or return to my body. To say the least, the prospect of returning to the physical was revolting, and I made every effort to avoid it. I was informed, patiently and lovingly, that I could actually remain and not return to the corporeal if I so desired. However, I was gently encouraged to examine my life before making that decision. I felt an increasing sense of aversion to this, but also a knowing that I needed to. I was under no duress. The decision was made because I had a strong internal feeling that it was the appropriate and important thing to do. So, unwillingly, I consented to have a look, and as a result, I had a really vivid life recollection. It was both horrible and breathtakingly beautiful. It was like seeing a movie with minute details. Every idea, word, deed, choice, and action was expressed, experienced, and re-examined. It was a self-evaluation that was completely transparent and honest. They embraced me with genuine sympathy and acceptance. During this review, I understood that I was every single person I'd ever met or imagined myself to be. I felt exactly what they felt as a result of my loving or unloving thoughts and deeds as I merged with and became them. I saw everything through their eyes, not only how my actions affected them, but also how they affected others they encountered as the ripple effects continued. I watched how the love we offer ripples outward, creating an everlasting beauty that we are frequently unaware of at the moment. This happened when I said something meaningful, thought something truly kind, or gave someone my complete attention. Simple gestures, such as a spontaneous and genuine grin, struck me the most. For example, I smiled at a woman on the street, and it brightened her day. She'd been feeling down about life, and my grin transformed her interactions with her children and others later that day. I could hear her thanking me on some level. We are strong and loving beings at our core, and we are given infinite opportunities to act on that love, unending opportunities to learn and grow by offering and receiving love. It felt like we were inside a huge game, carefully crafted to offer us another chance to get it right this time. For example, I noticed an unkempt man. It was as though he dressed in this disguise in the game to offer others a chance to respond with kindness. But when I and others evaluated him, Considering him to be disheveled, I sensed his deep anguish and regret. On a higher level, I apologized to him from the bottom of my heart, and I immediately felt his forgiveness. I observed how everything we do has an impact. We have a huge influence on one another, and it's all logged telepathically somewhere in our minds, so we carry the consequences of our thoughts, words, and actions within us. We have a responsibility, and we hold ourselves responsible for it all. I could understand how the consequences of our unlovingness on others became our personal misery. But none of this is true. Only love, in the end, is genuine. The heavenly love we share is all that actually matters, and it can be measured and endured. Nothing went overlooked throughout this process of brutally honest self-reflection. Nothing could be concealed. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This life review seemed like sifting over everything with a fine-tooth comb, looking under every rock, leaving no stone unturned, and seeing into every crevice with a divine light that disclosed every hidden location. And it was all viewed and discerned through the prism of love throughout the entire process. Love triumphed, and then I remembered. There was an interval in the life review where I was taken by the hand and led into another realm. There were trees, glittering beach, a turquoise water, so it seemed like Earth. There were fruit-bearing trees, luxuriant vegetation, and colorful birds. Every flower and every gleaming grain of sand seemed alive. Floral scents flooded the air. Even now, the scent of lilies and freesia transports me to that experience. It was smooth, airy, and brilliant all at the same time. Neither I nor the others were in a substantial body. Rather, we are dressed in these glistening, flowing, ethereal gowns. Everyone was floating and gliding inches above the earth. We could flow straight through each other, and when we did, there was a ripple of increased intensity above our already sustained ecstasy. As I moved gently, my hand would pass through the flowers, melding with and becoming them, and there would be that same joyful ripple. As I passed another, our thoughts quickly communicated. We felt like we were seeing into and becoming each other. We were all aware that we were all one another's. We were overcome with exuberant excitement. It would rise and increase, ebb and flow, but it would never end. I'd like to use the word orgasmic, but not in the way we know it on Earth. It was easy. It was love, pure and unending love. I was getting closer to agreeing to return to the body, but I was still hesitant and leaning towards saying no. Then, still without words, I was asked if I would look at a few more things, and I concurred. I was then shown glimpses of the life that was yet to come. These objects encompassed the difficulties I expected to confront, as well as the precious beauty they possessed. I was shown the children who will be born to me. I felt my love for them and their love for me, as well as love between me and many others who were still to enter my life. I could see my mother being devastated if I died, never forgiving herself, believing she was to blame for my death. One of the individuals I encountered there, who reminded me of my elder brother. My mother had not yet informed me that she had given birth to a stillborn son before me, told me how unhappy our mother would be. After seeing the life ahead of me, I was told that if I decided to return, I would momentarily forget everything and that it would gradually come back to me as I lived my life. Everything I saw in the previous review and the upcoming preview was brilliant and vivid, with greatly magnified emotions. I was told that everything would be fine. In fact, everything would be wonderful. I don't remember the specifics of the future picture. I have no recollection of a bodily death. I have no recollection of any of that. There was an event near the end of the life review and future visions that seemed to be a sort of finale, one more present to be shared and revealed to me. It was as though I had entered into a vast, wide, otherworldly space. In this realm, everyone I'd ever met, including folks I just passed on the street, literally everyone was there before me. I was astounded by the immense sea of people. As I looked around, I noticed the faces of those who had played a larger role in my life. Family, close friends, and ancestors. These were more noticeable, but there were also those I had met in passing on the street, in a park, everywhere I'd ever been in my life. I gazed over the sea of faces once I got past my initial shock at what felt like a huge surprise, and the message that came from all of them combined was, "Welcome back. We've been looking forward to seeing you." Oh my God, the profundity of this brings tears to my eyes, tears of appreciation and delight. This event left me with a deep, knowing feeling that no one is or will be left behind. We're waiting for one another. We sat and waited for everyone. We wait as long as it takes to walk back home together. We're like unconditionally loving witnesses to one another's life. There was so much love injected that it's indescribable, and it sends me to my knees in memory. It felt almost like a reunion. We then proceeded to reminisce eagerly in a sort of mind-to-mind communication. Oh yes, I remember when I said, or did, or thought that to you. You said, or did, or thought that to me. And then I felt and did, and so on. It's as though the divine is constantly encouraging one another toward our ultimate oneness with our Creator. This section was a revelation. On every level, it felt like a grandly organized event. Above the surface interactions, there is a completely different and completely correct level of communication going on at all times. Even if the interaction appears to be hurtful, when viewed from a higher level, it is always and only from love and always from the utmost good of both persons. It's as if I could see what's going on behind the scenes, behind the curtain of physical encounters. There's always a heavenly intellect at work. It was also hilarious to see how serious I'd often taken things. What a comfort it was to have clarity into what was truly going on. That's what our joyful reminiscing revealed to me. The whole affair felt like a big party. I chose to return to the physical when this reunion felt complete, and I realized what I was destined to fulfill moving forward. I felt I'd been handed a significant amount of duty, and I resolved to fulfill it. It was not a single major task. Rather, it was implicit in all I had experienced, to always be sincerely nice and convey love. Simply put, I had failed and could do better this time. Going back into human life to play out this earthly game was still difficult, but it was mitigated by the amazing love I just experienced and the knowledge that we'd all meet again. This entire experience had to have happened in a matter of seconds, yet where I was, there was no time, and it appeared to last forever. Perhaps the turning point for me was when the doctor used adrenaline to restart my heart after the penicillin had stopped it. In my experience, however, as soon as I said yes to the option to return, I felt as if I were falling backwards into the light, as if everything was happening in reverse, but faster, as if I were being pulled, sucked back through it all, plummeting backwards. As this sinking sensation began, I asked myself one final question. Will I, and when will I, be able to return to the love and brightness of my home and stay? The answer was an unequivocal, yes, my child, yes. And as for when, I heard, as I fell backwards, yes, in brink, followed by figures. It may have been 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, or all of those. I'm not sure if these pertain to years, days, persons, situations, lifetimes, or something else, and perhaps I don't need to know. I couldn't hear clearly, and I don't recall all of the details. I was sliding so quickly backwards that the communication became fainter. I could still hear the voice speaking, telepathically, but it was becoming fainter and fainter, and I was struggling to hear and gather it all. Then I was back in my body. I thought I understood everything. There was a lot of information, but it was all in my head. The encounter was about love, unconditional love that defies description, a wonderful and flawless love, and that tremendous love is equally present in all of us. The immensity of its limitless power could not be carried or sustained by a single human body. We all have an equal share. This kind of love is absolutely inexplicable in words. It's an unearthly environment filled with incomparable beauty. Our purpose is to remember and help one another recall this love, and the possibilities are constantly right in front of us. This encounter has stayed with me throughout my life. It has walked alongside me the entire time. It has specially taught me the value of every encounter and the possibility of heavenly love passing between us in the simplest of interactions. Since the event, I've grown more intuitive and knowing, and I've had other mystical visions, including spontaneous healing many years later,